Have you ever felt like your soul has awakened, but the weight of pain still insists on pulling you back? Perhaps you think you're trapped, chained to the wounds left by time. But what if I told you that now that your soul has awakened, no pain can imprison you anymore? No chains, no memories, no emptiness. Because the pain you fear is not an enemy. It's just the portal your soul has chosen to pass through. Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." How many times have you tried to hide your wounds, silence your cries, stifle what you carried inside your chest? How many times have you believed that pain was a sign of weakness, when, in fact, it has always been the hidden key to your freedom? Perhaps you're hearing these words because you need to remember, you are not your pain. You are the one who survived it. You are the soul who awakened after walking through the fire, after bleeding in silence, after believing you would never rise. But you did. You are here. And if you are here, it's because your soul has already understood something your mind still resists. No pain can imprison someone who has awakened to the truth. Think about it. How many times have you felt small in the face of rejection? How many times have you believed you weren't enough because someone didn't see your worth? How many nights have you spent in silence, begging for life to lift that weight from your chest? Perhaps you carry invisible scars. Perhaps you still feel the echo of broken promises, of people who left without looking back, of dreams that shattered before they were even born. But listen, pain didn't come to destroy you. Pain came to reveal who you are. Now that your soul has awakened, there is no more room for invisible chains. No more prisons can hold your essence. You are not rejection. You are not abandonment. You are not loss. You are the strength that rose from all this. You are the flame that remains lit even after the storms. You are the voice that did not remain silent, even when the whole world tried to silence it. How many times have you believed life was unfair for placing so much weight on your shoulders? But wasn't that weight precisely the call for you to wake up? Wasn't it your soul's way of saying, you can't live in sleep anymore? It's time to break free. The prison of pain only exists while you fight it. Because when your soul awakens, you understand. It's not the pain that imprisons you. It's the resistance to accepting it. It's the fear of going through it. It's the illusion that if you cling to the chains, you'll have some kind of control. But control isn't freedom. Control is just another cell. Now that your soul has awakened, you begin to see that pain is not a punishment, but a teacher. That every tear you shed was a silent prayer. That every scar etched on your chest is a living reminder that you survived. You are breathing. And that means nothing could destroy you. Rumi said, "Don't look outside for what can only be cured inside." How many times have you searched outside for what could only be found within yourself? How many times have you believed that someone or something would save your soul? But the truth is, healing has always been here, within you. Pain is not a prison, it's a passage. It's not an end, it's a beginning. It's the door your soul had to pass through to finally recognize itself. Maybe you feel right now that there's still a chain holding your heart back. Maybe there's still a deep fear of letting go, of surrendering, of trusting. But believe me, this chain isn't real. It's just an echo of the past, and you don't need to carry that echo anymore. Now that your soul has awakened, you have the chance to look at pain with new eyes. You have the chance to understand that nothing can imprison those who have discovered that true freedom is born within. And that's what we need to talk about now. And before we continue deeper into this journey, I want you to do something simple but powerful. Write the phrase here in the comments. My soul has already awakened. This isn't just an interaction. It's a silent commitment you make to yourself. It's like recording to the universe that you're no longer willing to be a slave to pain. If these words are touching your soul, it's because this content was made for you. Don't let it pass you by. Leave your like, because that way you're telling the digital world that this message matters, that healing matters, that your story matters. And if you feel this video is a refuge, a place where your soul breathes, subscribe to the channel right now. Here, every word is an invitation for you to go beyond your wounds and discover who you truly are. Now that your soul has awakened, let us cross the invisible together. Have you ever felt that even after so many tears, it seems like the pain still rules you? That, no matter how hard you try to get up, something invisible always pulls you back to the same place of emptiness? It's as if there were a prison built not by the outside world, but within your own soul. And this prison is silent. It has no iron bars or high walls. but it imprisons you with memories, with fears, with the constant feeling that you will never be enough. Perhaps you've tried so many times to erase this weight with distractions, with people, with promises of a new beginning, but deep down you realize that nothing really changes. The cycle continues. The emptiness returns. The wound persists. And herein lies the invisible problem. It's not what the world does to you that keeps this pain alive, but what you believe about yourself when the world fails to recognize you, when someone doesn't choose you, when a relationship falls apart, when life shows its cruelest side. Your mind whispers, "See, you're not worthy of love, you're not a priority." And this voice, however untrue it may be, becomes an echo that resonates within your soul. It's this echo that binds you. It's what keeps you in chains that seem impossible to break. Perhaps you know all too well that feeling of giving your all and still feeling like it's not enough, of giving yourself, of loving, of believing, but ending up empty, as if your dedication was never enough. Perhaps you've often wondered silently why you always end up alone, even after giving your best. It's a secret pain, a pain you hide even from those closest to you, knowing they wouldn't understand, and yet it remains there, persistent, like a shadow that won't disappear. What no one tells you is that this invisible prison isn't born from the pain itself, but from how you interpret it. Because when someone rejects you, it's not the rejection that imprisons you. It's the belief that you're worthless without that person. When life throws obstacles at you, it's not the obstacle that keeps you trapped. It's the illusion that you don't have enough strength to overcome it. And so the prison builds itself within, brick by brick, until you believe there's no way out. Have you ever noticed how the same situations seem to repeat themselves? As if life were presenting you with the same pain, only in different settings? Yesterday's abandonment returns as today's rejection. The silence of an old loss echoes with each new goodbye. It's as if the soul is still trapped in a lesson it can't learn. And until that happens, the pain remains sovereign, reigning over your days, your thoughts, and every decision you make. And maybe that's why you feel so tired. It's not just the weight of what you've already experienced. It's the exhaustion of always carrying the same ghosts. It's the fatigue of trying to break free, but feeling the chains still tighten. It's looking to the future and seeing nothing but a repetition of the past. It's believing your story is doomed to go around in circles. But what if I told you that this prison only exists because you haven't yet faced it head on? That the pain continues to rule because you haven't yet understood what it's trying to show you? Rumi said you have to break your heart until it opens. And perhaps that's precisely it. Your soul has awakened, but it still struggles with the reality that it must go through the pain to free itself from it. Running away doesn't work. Pretending not to feel it doesn't work. The emptiness only grows when you ignore it. This invisible problem is what makes so many people live years of their lives without ever touching true freedom, because they believe the prison is outside, when in fact, it has always been inside. The chain isn't the other. It isn't rejection. It isn't loss. The chain is the belief that you have no way out. The chain is the voice that tells you you don't deserve to be happy. The chain is the fear of looking at the pain and allowing it to reveal what you haven't yet wanted to see. And that's why I need to tell you, until you acknowledge this prison, it will continue to exist. Until you look within, you'll continue repeating the same cycle. Now that your soul has awakened, it's time to see the truth behind the pain. Because no wound, no matter how deep, has the power to imprison those who choose to go through it. Right here in the comments, I break the invisible chains. Record this phrase not just as an interaction, but as a symbol of your choice. Because the awakening of your soul begins precisely when you decide to accept that you will no longer be a slave to that which no longer defines who you are. Pain only imprisons us when we believe it's the end. This is perhaps one of the hardest and at the same time, most liberating truths you can hear. Because while you see pain as a final sentence, as a verdict that closes your story, it remains sovereign within you. But pain wasn't meant to close anything. It was meant to open. Rumi said, "Keep breaking your heart until it opens." And what he wanted to show us is that the human heart, when closed, believes it can protect itself, believes it can control life, believes it can hold everything around it. But deep down, a closed heart only accumulates weight. A closed heart doesn't feel life, it only fears loss. And this is where the spiritual root of suffering reveals itself. You don't just suffer because of what happened. You suffer because you keep trying to control what should have already been surrendered. You keep trying to hold on to people who have already left. Keep trying to sustain stories that no longer have life. Keep trying to rescue pieces of yourself that only exist in the past. It's as if your hands are always closed, clinging to invisible chains, and the more you try to hold on, the more it hurts. Notice how this manifests itself. You mentally replay conversations that have already ended. You relive situations in which you were rejected, humiliated, or forgotten. You remember glances that passed through you as if you were invisible. And instead of letting go, you hold these fragments even tighter within yourself. You carry them as if they were part of who you are. And so the pain that could have transformed into wisdom remains a prison. The spiritual root of pain lies in resistance. It lies in your refusal to accept that some things must be broken so that something new can be born. The soul awakens when it understands that it cannot hold on to anything that has already been surrendered to time. What needs to go, will go. What needs to die, will die. What needs to be released will fall apart silently. But the mind fights. It doesn't want to lose. It believes it can control the flow of life, and it is this struggle that prolongs suffering. Rumi also said that it's not the world that hurts us, but the stories we tell ourselves about those wounds. You don't grieve the loss itself, but the narrative you build around it. You grieve not just because someone is gone, but because you believe you'll never be loved again. You grieve not because you were rejected, but because you believe rejection defines who you are. This belief, this silent internal dialogue, is the spiritual root that needs to be unraveled. Think for a moment. How many times has life taken away something you believed you couldn't live without? How many times have you believed that end was final, that there was no future, that there was no more meaning? But time passed, and you survived. That moment that seemed unbearable is now just a memory. This proves that pain was never the end. It was just a portal. It was just a crossing. The soul only frees itself when it understands that everything that comes brings with it a lesson, and everything that goes leaves room for something greater. The spiritual root of pain is the illusion of control. It's thinking you need to hold on to avoid losing yourself. But the truth is exactly the opposite. It's in letting go that you find yourself. It's when you let go of resistance that the soul breathes. And this letting go isn't giving up. It's not weakness. It's not indifference. It's surrender. It's trusting that there's something greater sustaining the flow of life. It's believing that nothing truly yours can be lost. Now that your soul has awakened, you begin to realize that the wounds were not placed upon you to destroy you, but to open you up. Each pain was an invitation to look beyond the surface. Each rejection was a reminder that you don't depend on another's recognition to exist. Each abandonment was an opportunity to find within yourself the presence that will never leave you. What hurts is not the loss itself, but the struggle not to lose it. What holds you back is not the wound, but the fear of going through it. And maybe that's the question you need to hear right now. How many chains are you still trying to hold on to? How many stories are over but still alive in your mind because you insist on repeating them? How many ghosts still haunt you because you haven't let them go? Recognizing this isn't weakness, it's the first step toward freedom. Rumi said that you have to allow your soul to break over and over again until it finally opens. And this doesn't mean living in constant suffering, but accepting that each break is an opportunity for expansion. Each pain is a crack through which light enters. If you keep trying to keep everything intact, you will remain closed, trapped, hardened. But if you allow yourself to open up, if you allow yourself to surrender, you will discover that the soul doesn't fragment, it expands. And it's precisely at this point that you begin to understand that pain has never been an enemy. It has always been a messenger. It has always brought signs that something needed to be seen, something needed to be released, something needed to be transformed. The spiritual root of suffering is resistance, and liberation is born in acceptance. Write the sentence in the comments. I surrender what I cannot control. Record this commitment not just as words, but as a reminder to yourself that your soul has already awakened, and that no pain can imprison those who learn to let go. What no one told you is that when your soul awakens, pain can no longer be your master. It may still try to whisper memories. It may still try to scratch your mind with memories of the past, but something inside you no longer bends in the same way. Awakening makes you see what previously seemed impossible to comprehend. Every tear shed was not wasted, not a sign of weakness, but a portal. Every drop that ran down your face was a key that opened a secret passage to something greater, something you could only discover after crossing the abyss. What imprisons you is not the pain, but the belief that it is stronger than you. What imprisons you is not the wound, but the idea that you need to hide it to be accepted. And what no one told you is that accepting is not giving up. Accepting is freeing yourself. Accepting doesn't mean folding your arms and conforming. It means releasing the silent resistance that holds you back. Because every time you insist on fighting against what has already happened, you are pitting yourself against life itself. And life cannot be overcome by force. Life can only be embraced. The hidden key to healing lies in the internal movement of embracing your own pain. You may have spent years trying to convince yourself that you needed to be strong, that you needed to move forward without looking back, that crying was a sign of weakness. But the soul doesn't need this armor. The soul needs truth. And the truth is, the more you deny it, the deeper the emptiness becomes. The more you run away, the more persistent the pain becomes. It's like an abandoned child who keeps crying until it's finally welcomed. Now that your soul has awakened, you can look at pain with new eyes. You can realize that it was never an enemy, but a teacher. Pain taught you to look within, to not rely on fragile things, to realize that there is nothing out there that can fill what is missing within. Pain forced you to see yourself, to stop seeking in others what only you could offer yourself. This is the hidden key, understanding that there is nothing wrong with feeling, nothing wrong with crying, nothing wrong with being broken. All of this was a path. All of this was a bridge. Accepting pain isn't about abandoning yourself, but about finally finding yourself again. It's about allowing wounds to be open doors through which light enters. It's like Rumi said, the heart needs to be broken before it opens. And when it opens, it stops being a prison and becomes a temple. It stops being a chain and becomes a space. It's in this space that you discover that freedom wasn't on the other side of the pain, but in the way you choose to navigate it. You may have believed you needed to resist, to fight, to overcome the pain. But the key was never in fighting. The key was always in surrender. Because suffering only persists when you refuse to go through it. When you allow it to come, when you open yourself to feel it without fear, it ceases to be a prison and becomes a passage. And in that moment, you realize that nothing can truly imprison your soul. How many times have you believed that acceptance was synonymous with weakness? That acceptance meant settling for little, accepting crumbs, giving up on what you've always dreamed of? But true acceptance has nothing to do with giving up. Acceptance is looking at reality and saying, I will not fight what already is. I will not waste my energy trying to change what cannot be changed. I choose to go through this with courage. I choose to learn from what life is showing me. I choose to trust that there is something beyond the pain. The hidden key lies in stopping asking, why me? And starting to ask, what is this trying to teach me? This simple shift in perspective can transform wounds into wisdom, memories into strength, tears into seeds for a new path. Awakening the soul doesn't eliminate pain, but reveals its true purpose. Pain becomes a teacher, loss becomes a guide, silence becomes an answer. You no longer need to run, no longer need to resist. You can allow yourself. You can take a deep breath and understand that everything you've experienced, no matter how hard it was building something within you. Each loss taught you to value what remains. Each rejection brought you back within. Each silence taught you to hear your own voice. This is the key no one told you. Pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to make room for what truly matters. Now that you understand this, the question remains. Are you willing to let go of control, stop fighting life, and start moving through it with courage? Because that's the decision that changes everything. That's the choice that separates those who remain trapped outside and those who finally enter the temple of their own soul. Write in the comments, I accept the crossing of my pain. Let this phrase serve as a signal to yourself, as a declaration that you no longer run, resist, or hide. Because accepting is liberating yourself, and when your soul awakens, no pain can hold you back. Perhaps you're still attached to someone who's gone, not just physically, but inside yourself, in your thoughts, in your feelings, in the way you constantly revisit memories that never return. Perhaps there's a part of you that insists on believing that if you had done something different, that person would still be present, would still choose you, would still keep you a priority. And this is how the soul ties itself to invisible chains. You carry this weight silently, trying to appear strong on the outside, but inside you feel like you bleed every day, as if you have a wound that never heals. This is the rejection that you can't see, but that continues to pulsate. And here's the painful truth: it's not the loss itself that destroys you, but your resistance to accepting it. It's not the absence of the other that paralyzes your life, but the constant struggle against the fact that it's already over. Your mind creates 1,000 stories trying to justify it, trying to hold on to something, trying to find an explanation that will make you feel better. But the more you search for that explanation, the deeper you sink into the void. The moment you let go is the same moment the prison disappears. The pain continues to exist, but it ceases to be a prisoner and becomes merely a passage. Think about how many people live trapped in relationships that have ended, even if they're still officially together. They live in a broken bond, where there's no longer reciprocity, where love no longer flows, but hope insists on keeping the soul captive. They believe that if they wait a little longer, if they try a little harder, they might be able to revive something that died long ago. And each failed attempt is another chain, another brick in the wall of their own prison. The same thing happens with the rejections we carry from an early age. Maybe you were ignored at a time when you most needed to be seen. Maybe you felt like you weren't enough for your parents, for someone you loved, for a friend who left you aside. These small emotional cuts, accumulated over a lifetime, create deep scars that shape how you see yourself today. You grow up believing you must always prove your worth, that you must always do more to avoid being left behind. And without realizing it, this belief becomes invisible shackles that keep you trapped in the past. And if you pay attention, you'll notice that life keeps repeating this pattern. Situations change, people change, but the feeling is the same. The feeling of not being chosen, of not being seen, of not being enough. This is the cycle of pain. It only breaks when you decide to face the root of the problem, when you understand that it's not the other person who needs to change, but you who need to let go. Because the pain you feel isn't about the other person. It never was. It's about how you've learned to relate to emptiness. Perhaps now, as you listen to this, you can recognize this movement within yourself. Perhaps you realize you're still attached to someone who's no longer part of your life, but who still occupies a huge space in your heart. Or perhaps it's an old memory, a rejection you never wanted to revisit, but which still echoes within you like a constant shadow. The awakening of the soul begins precisely when you look at this shadow without fear, when you understand that it's not the end that hurts, but your resistance to accepting that it's over. What if it were different? What if instead of holding on, you simply let go? What if you accepted that some things aren't meant to last, that some people are only meant to be with you for a time? This acceptance doesn't erase history, it doesn't erase love, it doesn't erase memories, but it does strip them of their power to govern your life. You no longer have to live imprisoned by what's gone. You can choose to make room for the new. It's like carrying a suitcase full of rocks on a long hike. You can insist on carrying it, believing that without it you won't be yourself. But the moment you let go, you realize you can walk lighter, that you can breathe, that you can see the path ahead clearly. Letting go isn't forgetting. Letting go is letting each thing take its rightful place within you. It's allowing pain to exist without it having to rule your days. And maybe you're hearing this now because your soul already knows it's time to let go. Maybe you feel like you can no longer live repeating the same stories, reliving the same wounds. Maybe you're tired of living in the cycle of pain, of believing it will never be enough. Now that your soul has awakened, it's time to choose freedom. And freedom begins with a simple gesture, opening your hands and letting go. Write in the comments, "I let go of what no longer belongs to me." This phrase is not just a comment. It is a declaration to your soul, a reminder that the prison no longer exists, that you are ready to walk without the chains you once believed you needed to carry. You are not the pain. This is perhaps one of the greatest spiritual truths you need to hear right now. Because for so long you believed that pain was your identity, that suffering defined who you were, that the wounds you carry were all the world saw of you. But no, pain was just a part of your journey, a necessary crossing, a river you had to ford. You are the one who survived it. You are the one who walked through endless nights and still rose to the morning. You are the one who was broken, but not destroyed. You are the one who got up so many times, even when you believed you no longer had the strength to take a single step. Rumi wrote, "Don't settle for stories of how things happened to others. Awaken your own legend." And perhaps you've lived too long comparing your story to others, believing that happiness always resides in a life that isn't yours. But this awakening you're experiencing now is a call to abandon comparison and embrace your own journey. Your pain wasn't the same as anyone else's. Your healing won't be the same either. And that's precisely what makes your journey unique, special, and sacred. Now that your soul has awakened, you can walk free. Not because there will be no more obstacles, not because you will never again feel sadness or emptiness, but because you understand that none of these can imprison those who have discovered their own strength. Pain ceases to be an enemy and becomes part of the path. Emptiness ceases to be a threat and becomes an invitation to discover what truly matters. Silence ceases to be loneliness and becomes an encounter with the sacred. The shift in consciousness happens when you look back and realize, I went through it all and I'm still here. I faced rejections that could have destroyed my soul but didn't. I survived losses that seemed unbearable, but today I'm living proof that there's life after the fall. I walked through the desert of loneliness, but still found within me a spring that never runs dry. This awareness changes everything, because when you recognize your strength, pain loses its power to present itself as a prison. It may even knock on the door, but you already know you don't need to make room for it to live inside you. Now that your soul has awakened, you begin to understand that your life is not defined by what was done to you, but by what you choose to do with what happened. Suffering is not a sentence, it is raw material. And when your soul awakens, you transform pain into wisdom, loss into freedom, silence into prayer. It is at that moment that you begin to write your own legend, without needing to repeat the painful chapters you have already experienced. Perhaps for a long time you believed you needed to wait for someone to come and save you, that you needed a look, a love, an external validation to finally feel whole. But awakening shows you that no one has that power over you. The only person who can free your soul is you. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop begging for crumbs and start living from the inside out, knowing that your existence is already complete. This shift in consciousness is like turning on a light in a dark room. At first, you're still frightened by the furniture, the shadows, the old marks that were hidden. But little by little you realize you can rearrange everything clean, open the windows, let the air in. Life doesn't become perfect, but it becomes real. And when it's real, you no longer have to pretend. You can simply be. Now take a deep breath and allow yourself to feel this truth. You are not the pain. You are the one who survived it. Your soul was not born to live in chains. It was born to fly. Awakening is exactly that. Spreading the wings that were hidden beneath the weights you carried. And when you fly, you realize that the chains were never real. They were just illusions created by fear. And maybe you need to hear this clearly. You can walk free. Not tomorrow. Not when everything is resolved. Not when someone finally sees your worth. You can walk free now. Because freedom doesn't depend on the external world. It depends on what you choose to carry inside. When you choose to leave the past in the past. When you decide to stop fighting what can no longer be changed. When you choose to accept that the pain was just a chapter. In that moment, the prison dissolves. You no longer need to hide behind your wounds. You no longer need to define yourself by what you lost. You no longer need to cling to what never returns. Your soul has already awakened, and what awakens doesn't go back to sleep. What awakens doesn't return to imprisonment. This is your moment to turn the page and begin writing your legend. Write in the comments, I walk free with my soul awakened. This phrase is not just a comment, it is an act of courage. It is a reminder to yourself that pain is not who you are, but what you went through to discover your true strength. If you've made it this far, to the end of this video, it's because your soul recognized each word as a calling. Nothing happens by chance, and if you stayed until the end, it's because you're ready to take the next step. This space is a refuge, a mirror for your soul, and each new video is another key to your awakening. If this message touched you, subscribe to the channel now to continue this journey. The awakening of the soul doesn't end here. On the contrary, it's just beginning. Leave your like so this truth can reach even more people who, like you, need to hear it today. And don't stop here. The next video is already appearing on your screen, and in it you'll dive even deeper into this path of healing and awareness. Click now and keep going, because your journey continues.